community of the history of the country Kuwait. Now, we've already spoken about Sudan, we spoke about Bangladesh in the last few days, we've spoken about Afghanistan, Pakistan. So now we're going to speak about Kuwait within regards to Jewish history within regards to that country. It's actually very connected, you could say, with the Jewish history of Iraq also. Now, let's go into it now. There's a famous British businessman, someone named Naim Dangoor, was an Iraqi Jewish exile whose grandfather was a chief rabbi of Baghdad at this time. Now, we've spoken about the Dangoor rabbinic dynasty. There was Rabbi Elisha Dangoor, Rabbi Ezra Dangoor, very great rabbis at that point in time. So Rabbi Naim Dangoor is a key person we have to start with. He would come to Britain, I think in the 1930s, to study engineering at the famous Queen Mary College in London. He would return to Iraq to join, I think, the army at that point in time, and then he set up his business enterprise. He spent the 1950s, he would run the Coca-Cola franchise in Iraq with a very, very friendly Muslim business partner. Now, it's actually interesting. He states over here that, I think it was in 1776, someone named Sadak Khan Zand, he captured Basra. Many of the inhabitants left the country, and among them were Jews who went to Kuwait. So interesting enough, so you can see there is a Jewish community or history in Kuwait respectively. It was around the year 1860, their number increased and their trade flourished. The Jews had a market called the Jews Market, which was next to the Market Mosque over there. It was known that the Jewish people used to make alcohol and they would sell it to the public. The Jewish people were known to be very careful with trading. Mostly wholesalers that worked, I think, with India, with Baghdad and Aleppo, respectively. They even exported to Europe and China. Reported over, there was about 80 Jewish families in Kuwait living in one district where the Bank of Trade, I think, is now. And the Jewish people used to wear a long gown called a Sassoon and a fez, which made them look, let's say, different from others over there. Some used to wear European suits, but they covered their hair with fez over there. They had their own synagogue with the Sefer Torah, and in the synagogue they had separate place also for women, also known as Ezrat. It's interesting, the Saturday itself is the Sabbath, the Shabbat, respectively. And obviously the Jewish people over there did not work. That's what's related over. They also had their own cemetery, which showed that they lived there for a long time. Now, I think before the year 1914, there was about 200 Jewish people there. So a very small, extremely small Jewish community there, but still notable. Most of them went to Baghdad and few went to India afterwards. There were two very wealthy Jews in Kuwait, but the rest were more on the middle class, let's just say, category. They were jewelers, I believe, and material traders. Among the wealthy Jews was someone named Saleh Makhlab. He owned the first ice factory in 1912, which he later, I think, sold to the arms trader and merchant Muhammad al-Bin Haydar Marafi. I think someone named Gorgi Sassoon, another famous person, and Menashi Eliyahu were traders also and financiers. Now, I think it was when the Sheikh Salim al-Mubarak, he came to power, I think, come off February 1917. He was, I think, the ninth ruler. He wanted to stop the Jewish people at that point in time from dealing with alcoholic spirits, with alcohol. So he called them and warned them. Now, I think there's no necessarily huge concrete evidence that they were kicked out of Kuwait, but it's actually just reading Wikipedia over here. Let's say just over here, it's reported that they went back to Iraq when I think it was King Faisal at that stage in time was when King Faisal the first, he would come to rule Iraq. The king had Jewish acquaintances like Wiseman and someone named Sassoon Eskell, who became, I think, the Minister of Finance in Iraq. Now, I think it was during the 1920s, about 100 years ago, all the Jewish people would leave Kuwait. Now, it's interesting, a professor named Faisal Abdullah Al-Kandari, he was of Kuwait corroborates. I think let's say, he would write an essay. The essay was called In Islam and Christian-Muslim Relations in 2006, and he would summarize this essay over here. I've got an extract, actually, Wikipedia article, give over a very detailed, let's just say, account of it. It says over, I think Kuwait in the last decades of the 19th century had become a dynamic place for its time. There was building boom in both houses and ships, and business opportunities abounded. The country was peaceful and stable. The combination of services available and economic, let's say, prospects drew people from surrounding countries at that stage in time, searching for a better life. The article deals with a little-known Jewish community that began to come to Kuwait during that time period. It also discusses the possible reasons why they left. These Jews belong to the Babylonian Jewish people over there who had lived in Mesopotamia for millennia. Their language was Arabic and they had traded between Baghdad and India for centuries. The majority were involved in textiles and they had their own market where people of all origins came to buy the cloth they imported. They usually educated their children in the synagogue, obviously, in the prayer of worship. It was a community in flux with constant comings and goings, rather than a stable group who arrived together and left together, and it was made up of diverse individuals. This is what's encompassed over here. Now, I think the article continues, and anyone tuning in live, please subscribe to the channel. We're nearing 8,000 subscribers, and we're doing videos here on the history of the Jewish communities all over various different countries. We're speaking about Kuwait over here. We spoke about Bangladesh a few days ago, Sudan. Not many people do this in the English language, just we're one of the only places that will do it over here, and proudly so. I think today the Abraham Society, the Abraham Society, claims to represent all Kuwaiti Jews, stating on their website that they are modern, humanistic and cultural initiative that is based on and representing the Jewish community of Kuwait in all its denominations. Now, friends, I don't know if any Jews are living in Kuwait per se at the moment, so there are some notable individuals in the secular sphere from Kuwait. Someone named Salah and Dawood Al-Kuwaiti. They were famous Kuwaiti Jewish musicians. Apparently they were born in Kuwait, and it's stated here on Wikipedia that they are Jewish. There have also been some Kuwaits converting to Judaism, which we're going to speak about in the coming minutes, including Naftali Benya, Yosef Al-Mahana, also someone named Ibtisam Hamid, also known as Basma Al-Kuwaiti, and also most notably Mark Halawa, which is very, very well documented about his in Judaism. Let's speak about Sassoon Eskell, who had a lot of ties. Who was he? He lived with Effendi, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll have to double check. So who was Mr. Sassoon Eskell? So he was another famous, and he passed away on the 31st of August 1932, 93 years ago. He was also known as Sassoon Effendi. Remember, Effendi was a title given to many of the prominent people in those days, and we spoke about many rabbis that had the title Effendi to it. He was an Iraqi statesman, he was a politician, he was a financier, and was regarded in Iraq as a father of parliament. Now, Mr. Eskell was the first Minister of Finance in the kingdom and a permanent member of the Parliament until he passed away, along with Gertrude Bell and T.E. Lawrence. He was very instrumental in creating and establishing the Kingdom of Iraq post-Ottoman rule, and he founded the nascent Iraqi government's laws and financial structures. So you can see wherever the Jewish people came, they really made an impact where they came in. So he was a Ministry of Finance. He was in office between the first 1921 to 1925. I think the Prime Minister at the time was Yassin al-Hashimi, Jafar al-Askari, and Abd al-Rahman Abjili, various other people also, which is very, very interesting enough. So I think he'll be succeeded by Muhsin al-Sadun. Very interesting enough. So very interesting. So he was born in the Ottoman Empire, which is obviously now part of Iraq. He reportedly passed away in France, Paris. He was 72 years of age. He was also a statesman and a financier. Now, he was one of the most prominent Jews in Iraq. He was knighted by King George V in the year 1923. Now, it's interesting. King Faisal I conferred on him the Civil Rafi Dain Medal Grade, the second grade, the Shahinsa Award, him in the Shir or Korsi Medal, and the Ottoman Empire decorated him with the Al-Mantumeyes Medal, respectively. So he was well decorated from a secular sphere in itself. Anyone tuning in live, please subscribe to the channel as we're exploring the history of various different countries over here. We're nearing 8,000 subscribers, so we appreciate it. if you can join the community and subscribe now. Now it's interesting, the scion of an ancient, distinguished and aristocratic Jewish family he happened to be. He was a great influence. Now it's interesting, of the Shlomo David. Now Sassoon, Mr. Sassoon, was born on the 17th of March in 1860 in Baghdad in Iraq. He was a cousin of the celebrated English war poet, someone and author, Siegfried Sassoon. Through their common ancestor, it's interesting, Eskell El-Kabir. Who was El-Kabir? He lived between 1740 to 1816. His father was Chacham Haskell, a rabbi was spoken of before, Shalma, or Ezra, Shlomo David. He was a student of the famous rabbi Chacham Abdallah Somech, who was he was a Rosh Yeshiva of the famous Yeshivat Midrash Bet Zilka in Iraq, which is spoken of before. Now I think it was in 1873, Mr. Eskell travelled to India and became the chief rabbi and the shochet of the thriving Baghdadi Jewish community. In 1885, he returned to Baghdad as a leading rabbinical authority and as, let's just say, and a great philanthropist he was at that point in time. Now, a wealthy man, I think it was come out in the year 1906, he built the Slat Hacham Eskell, one of the most prominent synagogues in Baghdad, and his father, the patriarch of the Eskell line of the Shlomo David dynasty. Hopefully we'll speak about it at one stage in time. That's interesting. Mr. Sassoon would get his education in the famous Alliance Israelite Universal School System in Baghdad over there, which we've spoken about on various occasions before. Now, in the year 1877, he was 17 years of age, he would travel to Constantinople to continue his education. He was accompanied by his maternal uncle, the very wealthy magnate and landowner, someone named Menachem Saleh Daniel. He was elected deputy for Baghdad to the first Ottoman Parliament in 1876 during the reign of Sultan Abdul Hamid II. That was. He would also later become the senator of the Kingdom of Iraq between 1925 to 1932. Now, Mr. Sassoon then went to London and Vienna at the Diplomatic Academy of Vienna to receive a higher education in economics and law, and he was known as a brilliant student. In this particular way, he would return to Constantinople to obtain an law degree, and hence is known as Sassoon Effendi, respectively. The Turkish Effendi is a title meaning lord, like you got in England nowadays, the title lord. So he was connected to Kuwait. He was fluent in various languages, in English, in Arabic, in Turkish, in Persian, in Hebrew, in French, German, Greek, and Latin. When he was in the year 1881, he returned to Baghdad and was appointed a dragoman for the Vilayet of Baghdad, which I think was supposed to remain until 1904. In 1885, he was appointed Foreign Secretary of the Wali General on the announcement of the new Ottoman constitution in 1908. He was then elected deputy for Baghdad in the first Turkish parliament, a position he occupied until the end of the First World War, when Iraq was detached from the Ottoman Empire, respectively, at that point in time. That was in the year 1918. In the Ottoman Parliament, he worked as a member of various committees and organisation, including committee of, I believe, the Union and Progress, the Young Turks Party, and was a chairman of the Budget Committee over there. Very interesting enough. He was deputed to London and Paris on special missions, including as a member of the Ottoman delegation to London in 1909. He was working under Secretary of State of Trade and Agriculture. I think in 1913 he was appointed advisor to the Ministry of Commerce and Agriculture. Friends, anyone tuning live, we are exploring the Jewish history of Kuwait. Please, everyone, subscribe to the channel if you are live over here, and welcome to our channel over here. We've got fantastic content over here, full of great videos, so please subscribe now. Now, creation of post-World War I Iraq was in 1920, after the end of the First World War. Mr. Sassoon would return at that stage in time to Baghdad from Istanbul and was appointed Minister of Finance in the first Iraqi government. It was a new provisional government under the premiership of Abd al-Rahman al-Nakib. The importance of his role was, let's say, what was to make or break the new constitution of Iraq. The details of this were highlighted by Gertrude Bell, someone named Gertrude, when I think she would recount at that point in time the circumstances that established the new Iraq's government at that stage in time. Interesting enough, though, I think it was to research a final conclusion, let's just say, on the choice. It was for ruler Winston Churchill at the time, the British Colonial Secretary. He summoned a small group of Orientalists to Egypt for the famous Cairo Conference there was. And on March 1921, the British Empire, the best minds in the Middle East, would determine the fate of the Mesopotamia, the Transjordan and Palestine. And Mr. Churchill's objectives were to save money by reducing British overseas military presence, find a way at that point in time to maintain political control over Britain's mandate areas as identified in the Sykes-Picot Agreement, protect what was then suspected to be, I think, that stage in time, let's just say a very, very substantial, it was, oil reserves in Iraq. And I think lastly it would preserve an open trade route to India, a crown jewel of the empire representing the Iraqis. Two members of the council were picked to join the delegation. Now it was Mr. Sassoon Eskell and Jafar Pasha al-Askari, with I think someone named Said Talib left behind. There was a conference which I think at that point in time, Mr. Sassoon and Jafar Pasha's approval, the Emir Faisal was chosen for the throne of Iraq. Now he was in a ministry office also, we have to point out. I think it was actually when Faisal I was enthroned as King of Iraq, a new ministry was formed on the 1st of September 1920 until 1925 of Abd al-Rahman al-Nakib. I think it was come what year 1925, he was elected the deputy for Baghdad in the first parliament of the kingdom and was re-elected to all parliament. He was the chairman of finance as a father of parliament. Let's say the depth of experience and his age, his advice was taken on. He had vast parliamentary knowledge. His advice was taken on in parliamentary matters. He arbitrated at the time, and let's just say his views were accepted. Whenever a conflict arose itself concerning the enforcement of internal regulations, he was considered to be a far-sighted statesman with great knowledge of Iraq and various other countries. He was immensely well-travelled and very well acquainted. Friends, if you're tuning in live, please subscribe to the channel and welcome to our community here. Now, a famous convert to Judaism, which is very well documented in recent years, is someone named Mark Halawa. He had a Muslim background. He was grew up in Kuwait. Now remember, we spoke about before of Mr. Sassoon. He had connections with Kuwait also, his family did. Okay, so who was Mark Halawa? He grew up in Kuwait and his father owned a successful business, construction company. They were Muslims, obviously. And he grew up, grew up knowing to dislike and really hate Israelis over there, and very much, and they were very anti-Israel. It was reported over, and he would, I think it was his father was a supporter of the PLO, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which is also very, very interesting. I think it was in 1990 when he was 12 years old. His life would change completely. He was on vacation when I think Saddam Hussein invaded and annexed Kuwait, and his father's business, along with many in the country, was ravaged. His savings were worthless piece of paper, described over, and his father, I think, was able to sneak back in. I think they immigrated to Canada, but the father was able to sneak back into Kuwait somehow. I think it was, he said of his family, he was the only one that stayed in Canada, if I'm not mistaken. And he states over that his father would never really, at that stage in time, settle in, let's just say, in Kuwait at that point in time. Friends, I'm reading an article over here, just using the Ish website, ish.com website, with regards to Mark Halawa, who was who converted to Judaism from Kuwait, respectively, so over here. So it's a very, very well detailed article, let's just say, in of itself. So we're just reading over within regards to that. Anyone that's tuning in live, please subscribe to the channel. We are nearing at the moment 8,000 subscribers, so we really, really appreciate if everyone, and we can just continue this video as I leave Justice bus stop. We were just in the capital city of Israel, Jerusalem, as we just make our way over here in the city of Bet Shemesh, friends, and we are speaking about the Kuwait Jewish community over here. So as we're just going to continue at the moment, So he's the only one that stayed in Canada, I think, at that point in time. His family never adjusted to life. I think it was in 2003. He was studying in the university library in Ontario at that point in time, in London, when I think he happened to notice an older man is reported over from, I think, the Hasidic community over there, ultra-Orthodox community. And his curiosity was aroused, Mr. Halawa, at that point in time. He asked him if he's Jewish, and he smiled to him. And I think they got speaking over there. I think his name happened to be Rabbi or Dr. Yitzhak Bloch, who was a retired professor of philosophy. They exchanged words, and that's where I think his journey pretty much started. I think it actually states over that his mother, per se, his mother's parents, if I'm not mistaken, was, I'm just going to... so they would meet, I think, in Jerusalem. I think there was connection with Jerusalem and the West Bank itself, respectively. I think when he was 18 years old, and his grandmother was, So I think he goes on in this article over here about his family, how they were maybe in the Jordanian army. He would have, let's say, connections over there. He would have long conversations, I think, with Mr. Dr. Bloch over here in the university library, and looked at him. In Muslim law, he said, you're not considered Muslim, since your religion goes by the father. But according to Jewish law, you're Jewish. So apparently, this man from Kuwait happened to really have been a Jew. So thanks to Mr. Dr. Bloch, that was speaking to him somehow. He was telling him his story. So he started thinking about his history and so on and forth. And he actually was able to recall how his grandmother had a funny name on her documents. The name Mizrahi, which he never heard before. She was, I think, also had a small Hebrew book with Hebrew letters. So he put two and two together and realized he's actually most likely Jewish over here. And thanks to Dr. Bloch telling him over there. So he would start investigating, and I think would ask questions and ask him if he's Jewish. And I don't think the grandmother answered originally, but I think he had a great uncle named Zaki who was killed in Jerusalem before the rebirth of the state of Israel, if I'm not mistaken, which he adds on inside this article. And he would initially avoid the issue of Judaism, I think, because for one reason or another. But as he finished university, let's just say, and he wanted his career to become the priority at that point in time, he would tell himself that he belonged from a mixed faith family, which is interesting enough. Now, I think it was about a year later, he was running around the neighborhood, whatever it was. He was doing some sports. He would spray his wrist at that point in time, and he thought it was a message from above at that stage in time. And he would go on a spiritual journey at that point in time. Spiritually, he was thinking about it. He was very into fitness. This Mr. Halawa was. And because of this injury, I think he was forced to take off a period from work. And I think his conversation with Dr. Bloch all those years would actually really ring a bell. And he mentioned about Saturday morning Shabbat services, respectively. So he would go and check it out, if I'm not mistaken. And he would go to a synagogue, and obviously he would greet Shabbat Shalom. They would greet to him. He looked, let's say, like a Sephardic Jew, obviously being potentially from Kuwait, you could say that. And he started learning about it. He got inspired very much so, this Mr. Halawa was. And he stood there, I think, inside the synagogue, and just enjoying and imbuing the prayers in himself. He would go to the service. At finish, he would meet everyone at the Shabbat Kiddush, respectively. He spoke, I think, with an Egyptian couple, and they had various different stories. Obviously, Jews from all backgrounds were gathered in this place. It's interesting, I think Dr. Bloch was over there at that point in time in the synagogue, so obviously he pre-arranged to meet him over there, and he would join him for Shabbat lunch after the Kiddush, if it's not mistaken, and he would actually teach. They would start talking together and get into a spiritual discussion, if I'm not mistaken. His interest will grow, not just from this service over that point in time. In Torah, he would want to be interested in keeping Shabbat. So it's reported over, he would tour Israel, I think, for a month, and would study at Yeshivat Eish HaTorah at one stage in time. He would start up with a fellowships program, a program, if anyone's looking to go to Yeshiva, I very much recommend people to actually go to. Then I think he would have close contacts with his family and friends. And but it would have been hard. He's becoming I mean, he's Jewish, but I mean, it's becoming religious now over here, and he didn't really always know he was Jewish over here. So it was a big, let's just say, a big change inside the world. He was able to establish, he was learning about the different economic relations between Israel and Arab countries and about peace issues, let's just say, in himself. And he was trying to educate himself with regard to the Holocaust at that point in time. And I think he would speak to various different Muslims and advocate for Judaism, for Israel, to build bridges, to gain ground, knowledge ground, let's just say, in of itself. And very, very interesting. So what a story he's got. I recommend everyone to search him. Mark Halawa it is. And he talks about like the Arab-Israel conflict. You know, is it intractable or not? This is something that the H website that's actually quoted his name through it. He talks about how Arabs today have a more universal education, which makes them more open and curious to other things in general. So he's trying to bring a ray of hope inside this article. And they also meet Israelis and Jews while they're traveling in all different places. And he's stressing that inside this article. Very, very good article of H.com actually give it, and they give some brilliant articles over. And he obviously he's very upset. You know, he didn't realize he was Jewish the whole time, but really that I think now at this stage he states over that all of his relations know that he's a practicing Jewish person at that point in time, all the Arab relations, which is obviously many of them. And he talks, I think, some of them, the people that are politely interested, let's just say, in of itself. And the most important is having love and respect for each other. And he also says his father is resistant. However, given that secularism and war against Israel are the two ideological pillars of his life, he talks about that again. And he talks about political discussions of the state of Israel, which are very, very interesting. And obviously now, being a religious Jew, you could say he's definitely a Zionist. That's one thing for sure, Mr. Mark Halawa. He was taught to dislike Jews, to see that they were bad, and so on and so forth. But he's now seeing the total opposite, obviously embracing Judaism, so on and so forth. How he's got his Jewish soul, and so on and so forth. He's a famous figure, Mark Halawa, and I recommend everyone to research. There's a lot of actually media articles. I think his story is actually recounted over on various different places, also over here. So very, very interesting. Friends, we are exploring the Jewish community history of Kuwait over here on this special edition. So if you are new onto the channel, you're coming on our channel over here, please subscribe to the channel and join our community, friends, and enjoy. You've got, this is not the first Asian country we've spoken about over here. We spoke about Bangladesh recently. We spoke about Sudan in previous videos. We've spoken about Pakistan, Afghanistan already. We're trying to go through all the Asian countries. We did the South America countries quite recently. We covered about 10 to 12 countries from the South American parts also, which I recommend everyone to watch over. We recorded that, and we did some countries in Central America also, and we're going to start concentrating on the more European countries also in the coming, hopefully, month or two. So we're trying to explore all different countries. So if you are new here to our community, you come live on the channel, please subscribe to the channel and join. We've got fantastic content for you, fantastic people out there. We also do tours all over Israel. We toured all over Jerusalem this morning. Went to the area district of Haranof, where we explored all the archaeological parts, the streets, the sights and the scenes over there, which is a special treat. And we record with a great Jewish personality every single day, the burst of wisdom, where they relate over something to really inspire Israel for the 21st century watcher. So that's something I will definitely state over here. And if you watch this space, we're going to hopefully record a daily Daf Yomi tidbit also in the coming few hours also. So we have a lot of content every single day, and we like to record these videos at different places at different times. So Kuwait, on its peak, seemingly there was maybe a couple of hundred Jewish people over there. There were notable figures like Mr. Sassoon, who we spoke about today, had connections very much with Kuwait. Many of the Iraqi Jews, Indian Jews respectively, also did have a strong connection at various different points in time. So that's something else that we have to point out. So that's very, very interesting. So yeah, anyone coming, welcome. And yeah, wishing you all a great day. I'll leave you with some sights and scenes here of Israel to conclude this video. Over here, as we're in the city of Bet Shemesh, friends, over here in Ramat Bet Shemesh Aleph. Very interesting. As we just explore Israel, we like to not just record videos of Israel, we like to explore the history of Israel, and not just the Jewish history in of itself, but also live it and walk it over here in Eretz Israel, the most beautiful country in the world. Just recording this here from Ramat Bet Shemesh Aleph in the city of Bet Shemesh. Bet Shemesh obviously means the house of sun. I will definitely point that very much out to you people over here, as today we explore the history of the Jewish community of Kuwait. Also, so it was a week ago actually we recorded, I think just over a week ago, we recorded the video of the country Sudan, which we have to point out. And just before Shabbat we recorded a video of Bangladesh also, which was actually very exciting and very, very interesting and informative also. So I think on this note over here, wishing you all a fantastic day. Shavua Tov and Baruch. We're going to come in this week, coming into Parashat Vayishlach, the Torah portion. So watch your space also for a video within regards to that. I'm wishing you well. And once again, friends, please subscribe to the channel and join. I wish you all a great day and enjoy. We've got fantastic content coming up. So wishing you all a great day. Thanks for watching, everyone.